on the storm because they're prepared to go down and help.
Also tonight, you know what to do with that yield sign behind me, right? You wait till it's appropriate and safe to merge into traffic. What if you saw a sign that said alternate merge? Would you even know what to do with that? It's confusing a lot of people in Wells. We'll tell you about it tonight. This is News Center Now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Mills. There's Lee's nightly cup of coffee.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's decaf.
That's good. Okay.
And good evening, everybody. I'm Lee Nelson. Thanks so much for joining us. This evening, we'll begin the news on the healthcare front. Governor Janet Mills announced this afternoon that Maine will pursue a state-based health insurance marketplace. Mills submitted a letter of intent today to the U.S. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and that letter stated that Maine will pursue this option for the 2021 health insurance plan year. She expects to introduce legislation to establish the details of the new state-based marketplace when the legislature reconvenes. That's in January. So again, this is for 2021, so something we'll need to consider at the end of next year. The decision announced today will not affect the upcoming open enrollment period in November of this year. So preparations to help those in the path of Hurricane Dorian are underway tonight. Volunteers from the Red Cross are making sure they have shelters set up and food and other supplies for the people who cannot evacuate certain areas.
Thomas Dobson is a Maine volunteer for the Red Cross who will be coordinating assistance efforts over the next few days. He will be traveling to wherever help is needed most in the wake of the storm.
I think the best of people come out during disasters, and I find it very humbling to be able to help people in very difficult situations. So it's very gratifying to do that.
He doesn't yet know where he'll be assigned to go, but once he does get there, he'll be coordinating directly with local emergency officials.
All right. Keep posted on that for sure.
Yeah.
I know where Keith's assigned. It's right over there at the weather map. It's going to tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, it's we're going to talk about Dorian a little bit. Luckily, our weather a little quieter than that. And guys, the downpours from last night ended up tropical, yes, but flooding, no. So that's the good news. And if you're in western Maine or southern Maine, you might find it hard to believe that it is still raining in down east Maine right now. That's all part of that same batch of moisture. That's where the clearing took place over half the state, and about a third of the state is left still with some cloud cover. But most of us did clear out tonight and ended up with a nice day. Temperatures show you where we cleared out, right into the 80s over southwestern Maine, only in the 70s, and still some 60s where it's been kind of socked in through the day today. And so that's what we expected, the rain holding on over down east Maine a little bit longer. So it moves out in the next couple of hours, and overnight tonight is relatively comfortable temperatures in the 60s around midnight, could get down to the 50s through tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow is a beautiful day in most spots with just an isolated sprinkle in the mountains. Guys, our weekend forecast is looking good. We'll talk about that, and of course we'll have a kind of in-depth analysis on Dorian in just a few minutes.
We'd have sent up a much larger flare.
All righty, thank you, Keith. Talk to you again in a bit. Let's check some headlines for this Thursday. The Justice Department's Inspector General says former FBI Director James Comey violated FBI policies in his handling of memos documenting the private conversations with President Trump. The watchdog office says Comey broke FBI rules by giving a memo containing unclassified information to a friend with instructions to share the contents with a reporter. Comey wrote a series of memos about conversations with Trump that he said unnerved him.
A decade after passing a law to regulate cigarettes, the Food and Drug Administration has yet to enact the most sweeping reforms outlined by Congress. Anti-smoking groups are now suing the FDA to take action amid fears tobacco regulation is faltering. FDA officials say they have made key investments in research and education that have prevented hundreds of thousands of young people from taking up the habit of smoking. But as we've been reporting, the rise in use of e-cigarettes among young people is skyrocketing. skyrocketing.
And ahead of the 2020 presidential election, Facebook is tightening its rules around political advertising. The changes are starting next month. They include a tightened verification process that will require anybody wanting to run ads to confirm their identity and prove they're in the U.S. The verified group name will be listed on the paid for by disclaimers that disclose the financial backers of the ads. But the process won't apply to everybody. Small grassroots groups and local politicians will still be able to post ads by providing an address, a verifiable phone number, and a business email. All right, and now to our continuing look at gun safety and the ways we need to make some changes to lower the number of shootings. Bill Green talked to a psychiatrist who has some ideas to try and help solve this problem.
Yeah, he points out 3 areas of focus in particular. Here's Bill Green.
I've asked my friends at News Center Now to let me do a deeper dive into an issue of gun safety. It's an issue that affects us all. I'm trying to eliminate the far left and the far right and talk practically. So I've invited an expert, Dr. Jeffrey Barkin, who is a psychiatrist, former president of the Maine Psychiatric Association, still very much contributing. And Jeff and I have kind of boiled this down to 3 ways that we can look at the problem: device specific, person specific, and culturally specific. When you're talking device specific, Jeff, what are you talking about?
By gun specific, I mean, what is it that makes a firearm more lethal than another firearm? And it's clear that having rapid firing rate as well as high magazine capacity increases lethality. By cultural, I'm thinking, what other public health issues have we been able to positively impact by changing the perception? And one that comes to mind that I feel wonderful about in Maine is high school sports-related concussions, right? It used to be that if you played sports and your buddy got hit in the head, you wouldn't tell coach. But now the culture is, no. Hey, buddy, you got hurt, I'm telling coach. And we have protocols to establish when it's safe for a player to actually return to the game.
You had an interesting idea on background checks, that change to the way we do background checks, because background checks, people pass them and then go out and commit mass murders. What's your idea for changing background checks, Jeff?
I think that a background check should include a mental health screening, but the mental health screening, as I just said, is not adequate. What if you included a reference or 2 from somebody that knew you? When I evaluate somebody for a memory loss disorder, when I'm evaluating an older person and I ask about their memory, they're gonna say, my memory is fine. But when I pull a family member, a spouse, a child in, they're going to tell me about their mom, they're going to tell me about their dad or their spouse.
My hunting buddies think that suicides shouldn't be counted in gun violence statistics. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's perfectly good to separate statistics out, but the most recent statistics for the Centers of Disease Control show that homicides have increased more now than in 50 years. I would also suggest that part of affecting the cultural change is to get all of the learned people at the table, because everybody has good ideas. And rather than point fingers and assign blame, that's not going to fix it. I think we all who hunt, who shoot, like to go out and have a great time, but feel safe doing so. Yeah. Nobody wants to go into a store or a stadium fearing for their lives. And I know, having dealt with many, many other public health issues, that where there is a will, there is a way, and we can all work together to decrease this awful number of shootings.
Thank you, Dr. Jeffrey Barkin. Now, I'd like to hear from you. If you have thoughts, we're trying to do an intelligent look at gun safety, where we can go as a community and as a culture, as a society, as individuals. Drop me a note here on any of our social media outlets here at News Center Maine. I'd love to hear from you. We'll be back with more News Center Now in just a minute.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. So Dr. Jeffrey Barkin is someone who we've had on now before. When we need like an expert voice when it comes to school violence or
Interesting.
anything.
He's a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
But is he more than that? He must be published or something? How does it's a kind of a jump out of the realm of norm for a psychiatrist.
He does a lot of research. Like he'll send along, hey, I've been looking into this, I've been looking into
that's
that.
Great.
Yeah, he's always like learning and researching, and I do think he has some work published. It's been a while since I've looked at his website, but yeah, it's great to know that we have that resource, and it is an important conversation. And a lot of you guys were talking about the story that we had yesterday about the bulletproof doors in classrooms in New Jersey. So it's a great way to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
So how would you feel if you were vacationing in Maine and there was one attraction on your list, you got all the way there to find out it was closed?
Be bummed.
Right? So that was kind of the expression today. Nobody would talk to us on camera, but the Maine State Aquarium was closed today due to an unforeseen technical issue with the filters and the pumps and the tanks. And I just felt so bad for the people who you could tell were, you know, in Booth Bay Harbor. I mean, there's plenty to do.
Yeah, but still, if that was what you were going to do.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Well, you know, it's funny if you, I don't know that I would, you know, you look at the website before you go on your trip, not when you're already there.
Right,
Then you know,
right.
that's
Exactly. Okay.
All right, so what do we got here? We got
But yeah,
Aquarium and then Madison's Cafe.
so we were there earlier today. Oh, Patrick says his granddaughter is due October 3rd with a boy. That's cool, Patrick. Congratulations. So, will that be your great-grandson? I guess so. Teresa says when it comes to gun violence and that conversation, biometric gun locks as opposed to stricter gun laws is her vote. Very interesting conversation.
Biometric gun locks. But if somebody legally buys a gun, they don't have to put a lock on it.
True.
The Maine State Aquarium in Booth Bay Harbor is closed until further notice.
It's due to a technical issue. Staff and volunteers are working to relocate sharks and skates and other species in the tanks after a filtration malfunction in those tanks. The Department of Marine Resources spokesman says brown water was discovered in the tanks and was later linked to that malfunction of a pump. Apparently, it's never happened before. The DMR sent out a tweet alerting potential visitors of the closure, and they say when it's open, they'll let everyone know.
Madison's Cafe in South Berwick is closing forever. It's been employing people with disabilities in southern Maine for more than 2 years. The cafe has been really a haven for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's given them jobs, but also a sense of community. Nicole McComb named her restaurant in honor of her daughter, Maddie, who is on the autism spectrum. They were swamped with customers at first, but after their first full year in business in 2016, McComb did notice a drop in customers, and she says really they've been struggling to stay open ever since. That's a bummer.
That is a bummer. Taking turns isn't just for children. Coming up, we're going to see how drivers in a few Maine communities will need to do this to get to their destination safely.
Yes, and soon it'll be Keith's turn to do the
I
forecast.
was referring to, so never mind.
Abort. Oh my gosh, I think Mercury's in retrograde for Keith.
It would have made no sense without that story.
What was the story? Oh,
Food waste.
it was the food waste
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's the first time that's
Well,
happened
I saw
to you.
the story, so let's see the. Let me see.
I said sell by date shouldn't be a thing. Just tell me when to eat it. Like, that's what you said. Confusion is part of
Right.
it. Sell by is a dumb thing.
Right,
I don't
right.
know. I don't want to need to know when it needs to leave the store. Like when can I put it in my mouth?
Right.
You know.
When can I not put it in my mouth
right,
anymore?
Yeah. More
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Abandoned ship, abandoned whiteboard.
Are we heading back over there?
Yeah, that's what.
That's funny. That's never happened to you before.
This is my day, Lindsay.
Mercury is in retrograde for you. And I'm not helping because I also insulted you.
How did you insult him?
Well,
Can you tell or not?
I can. I'll say it because I'll say it in a way that doesn't make me seem like such a jerk.
Revisionist history.
We were talking about vehicles.
Oh, okay. I
Cars.
heard.
Yeah.
I heard.
So
Talking about his blue car.
I'll put this out there to open up the conversation to our Facebook viewers. Do you guys have funny stories from when you were learning to drive?
No.
You don't? Oh, sorry. Oh, Sarah just like at the same time said no. I was sharing a funny thing that came from when I was learning to drive, and my dad told me to watch out for a certain type of car. Keith drives that certain type of car.
Well, you should know to watch out for Keith no matter what anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
You didn't need anybody to tell you that. Your spidey sense should tell you.
That's true. It wasn't like a brand of car. Well, part of it was a brand, but mostly a color of car.
Interesting.
Which, that was just his unique observation, and then I kind of adopted that observation, and ever since we laugh about it.
And it seems true as you go through time?
I mean, it's silly, but yeah. Anyway, it was just
and
funny.
It's blue, right?
Yeah, the color
I've never
is
had
blue.
a blue car.
Yeah. And blue
There's
is
a
my
blue
favorite
car
color. I know, and here's blue cars. Now we're seeing them everywhere. So, anyway, I love the color blue.
All right, so it is something we are taught as children. Take turns. Now residents and visitors in Wells and Portland are going to have to do just that when they drive into an alternate merge.
Instead of one lane merging into another, both lanes merge into each other with cars taking turns to move ahead. And many of you are reacting to this online. Warren says if folks were interested in cooperative sharing, the arrows wouldn't be necessary. It won't work. Becky adds, most can't comprehend a yield sign spelled out. And Terrence comments, simple, easy, and obvious to any thinking individual.
All right, so what are we talking about? Beth McAvoy has more on the mania behind the merging here.
What they're trying to do is take two lanes and fit them together with drivers taking turns so that one goes, one goes, one goes, one goes.
It's a simple enough idea, but taking turns is not always something drivers are good at.
When I first saw this, I was like, I don't know what that means. I'd never seen it before.
The director of Public Works in Wells is worried the new alternate merge installed off of I-95's exit 19 is confusing to local drivers and to tourists.
There's been a lot of upset from folks who say, take it right out, shouldn't be there.
Murray and the town manager have been fielding calls about the merge that is not yet complete. Signs with a picture and the words alternate merge, take turns, are expected to be installed any day now. Adding to the confusion is the old merging sign.
Trying to get people to be nice, take their turn, don't cut in front of other people, and you know, if you do that, you get a more even flow.
The Maine DOT tells me they've installed 20 such alternate merges across the state in the last 8 years. They say they haven't had any complaints.
It's better than it was.
Paul Bluen says since the alternate merge was installed several years ago outside his Augusta business, there hasn't been any confusion.
They're trying to get the volume of traffic out of the city faster. So it has accomplished those things.
I think it's working.
Carol Murray thinks the key will be kindness, which should be no problem in the friendliest town in Maine.
We're going to have to all be courteous driving through there so that I let you go. I don't try to block you out.
In Wells, Beth McAvoy, News Center, Maine.
Yeah, if people are being nice, it works perfectly fine.
Right.
But that's a big if.
Yeah, you gotta all be on the same page, right? Either everyone's gotta be going same speed.
Just don't be in the left lane. Here's the thing. One of the few pet peeves I have driving, because I try to be really zen about it, being from Boston and living in Atlanta, you just got to let it go. However, if you let one person go, say you're packed up in traffic, you let one person go, they're taking a ride or something, and then 2 or 3 piggyback, that annoys me. Now it's like no good deed goes unpunished.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Unless you do the, but then everyone behind you hates you.
Right.
Exactly.
You know? So that's like one of the few things I'm like, all right, you one person, that's it.
Right. You should have a sign that just says, I'm going to let one person go.
Right. Don't you think cars should be able to communicate? Because all you can do is honk. You know, there should be a my bad sign.
Yes.
There should be a like, okay, one. Yeah, exactly. I think there's a car like that in The Simpsons. All right. Believe it or not, it's still raining in parts of down East Maine. It's hard to believe if you live in western, central, southern Maine. It's been nice really since mid-morning on, but still some rain coming down over down east. Rain totals luckily were not too huge although I will tell you, after showing this graphic before, I got a few people who said they have personal weather stations that they got 2.5 inches of rain at. So, this is just the official stations and what they came in at. And it ended up not being enough to cause flooding, which is obviously a positive, but it certainly was pouring last night. Things start to clear out statewide overnight tonight. Temperatures in the 60s and eventually 50s by early tomorrow morning. Tomorrow looks good. A lot of 80s around. An isolated sprinkle in the mountains and across northern Maine, but I think the vast majority of us actually remain dry through the day on Friday, and it's just a gorgeous day. Saturday looks good as well, but it's cooler. Temperatures more like low 70s by Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday we should be probably in the upper 60s for highs. So this upcoming weekend very similar to last weekend. Saturday a little bit warmer, Sunday only in the upper 60s or so. All right, let's have a look at Dorian. This is the national newsmaker. This is a satellite look at it. A couple of things to point out here. Symmetry is pretty good. It's a little bit east side tilted right now, but that's nothing major. Notice in the past couple of frames what you're seeing, those are thunderstorms that are developing within the outer bands of Dorian, which is a sign of strengthening, as well as around the eye wall here. See that area right there? That is an area of increased thunderstorm activity, probably undergoing what we call an eye wall replacement cycle at the moment, which is a sign that it will be continuing to strengthen. So it's a Cat 1 right now, but everything that we have for data says it will turn into a 3 and eventually a 4 now upon landfall somewhere on the east coast of Florida. We're going to talk more about this actually in brain drops, but the path forecasts as we talked about are better than the intensity forecast. But notice, guys, and I don't know if you're paying attention enough for this, notice a little shift here in now there is a turn that takes place, whether it be after landfall or right before, and that's going to be really crucial as to does it graze the coastline of Florida and then move up the eastern seaboard? So anywhere from the Outer Banks to Miami has to continue to watch this thing, and I'm sure that they will. The weekend here looks good. A couple of showers on Monday. Nothing crazy going on next week. It's going to be pretty average, 70s, and then getting cool there a little bit on Thursday. I will tell you, late next week is up for grabs based on what happens with Dorian. So if Dorian gets infected into our pattern, it's gonna be rainy late next week. Sure. If it doesn't, it'll be nice. And so we just have to wait to see. Something that big can throw off the whole synoptic pattern in the country.
Sure.
So, watch it.
All right, please do. We're going to watch this. So while I love it that my town comes and collects the trash, I have to admit that it's kind of a pain to walk it down to the end of the driveway, and matter of fact, I have to do that tonight because they pick up the trash tomorrow morning.
And these days I struggle to remember to do that, Well, they pick up trash on Tuesdays and Fridays in North Richland Hills, Texas. Why do we care? We care because it's a pretty exciting time for a little boy. As Ben Russell shows us, trash days are the best days for little Joey.
Every morning he sits on the curb and waits for them every Tuesday and Friday.
Joey Wasserman is being patient. It's no fun being patient. Not when you're 4. Not when you know what's coming.
So Miss Terry's the one that would take him out and say hi every morning.
I would take him and we'd wave, and some were scared and some weren't. And then there was Joseph. And Joseph took it to a whole new level.
As in he has his own uniform level.
So that he gets dressed and looks just like them on his daily route, I guess, is Joey's daily route is Tuesdays and Fridays.
And here they come, the regular Republic Services crew who collects trash along Little Joey Street in North Richland Hills. That's Damien on the right. His buddy back there with him is Keanu, and twice a week they turn onto this particular street to toss trash.
Start waving!
And lift a little boy's spirits. Damien is almost always the first one off to say hi.
How y'all doing today? People take things for granted all the time, and when you're bringing up small children and you're raising small children, you want to teach them that you don't take things for granted. And there are things in everyday life that make our lives better. And these guys definitely did that for him.
Time for the road. Yeah. There you go, big dog. Thank you.
Who's your best buddies? I hope people see the innocent love that he has for these men. Like, he just loves them. What can he say? Hey, Dave! And they love him right back.
It's awesome. He has the uniform and the gloves, too.
Yes.
Really, really good.
so sweet. Very exciting time for him, and it happens couple times a week.
I know.
So that's great.
Tuesdays and Fridays.
YouTube is launching a kids-only website aimed at shielding youngsters from potentially disturbing videos. YouTube Kids comes on the heels of the company's YouTube Kids app. The new site is going live later on this week. It will have 3 separate settings for age groups: preschool, ages 5 to 7, and ages 8 to 12. The move comes after criticism that YouTube has allowed inappropriate, misleading, and sometimes violent videos on its service. YouTube's parent company Google also says the original YouTube site is getting new filters which allow parents to manually control the videos their children are able to see.
All right, with that, let's say hello to Cindy, see what's coming up in the next half hour.
Hello! Do you guys know the fines for passing a school bus that has its lights on?
$250.
You are correct.
There you
What
go.
about for the second violation?
They throw you right in jail.
You lose your license, right?
You'll lose your license. They are serious about this, and unfortunately school bus drivers say this happens all the time. I can't imagine being witness to the terrifying instances that we show you all the time of kids almost getting hit. It's awful. So we're going to look at the rules and the fines, all coming up at 5:30. We're also going to meet a little boy who is out selling ice cream for a very good cause. It's to support the Travis Mills Foundation for Wounded Soldiers. We'll explain what his tie is to that and why he loves it so much. It's all ahead at 5:30. Back to you.
We know he's very busy before he heads back to school.
I know, he's got a lot going on.
We'll see you guys at 5:30. We're back with Raindrops after this. Sarah, what sound effect did you make? I love what James says. This is so timely. James says you can't get people not to pass a school bus, let alone the merge.
Oh, I know, right? That's alternate merge thing.
Yeah. And then Deborah says, "Oh, you're talking about common courtesy. Let's just be kind peoples about the merge." Teresa, I didn't know that about Himalayan salt, but that is really funny that you point that out. That's so funny. I didn't realize Sarah makes, we'll turn the camera. Sarah makes a sound effect whenever she moves the steady cam. There's Sarah.
Jeff did it. He started it.
Jeff started it?
Jeff does it on the headsets in the control room. Other way.
There's Jeff.
It comes from watching cartoons when I was a kid.
He says it comes from watching cartoons when he was a kid. So whenever they move that steady camera that you see them wearing, they make sound effects. They say shh.
It's more fun that way.
And there's Keith, and there's my forehead.
Isaac, let's start with Max 1.
Oh.
Yeah, Jeff does it every time when he dissolves to a break on our headsets.
Oh, he does it?
Yeah, so that's how I
That is so funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
All right.
Teresa was saying when it comes to food expiration dates, she said with Himalayan salt, it's so funny because that stuff's been around forever.
Right.
And then as soon as they package it, they put an expiration date on it.
There is stuff like that that really, honestly, is not going to go bad, but they just put it on there. Like beer, beer doesn't have an expiration date. It has Best By.
Yeah.
So a lot of them have this.
Although
it's best
old beers are not good, in my opinion.
Sorry, Max 1, guys.
He wants the other one. Next one. He wants director 1. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
One, then 2.
Yeah, better. Thank you.
So it's been interesting on social media watching some of our colleagues prepare for this hurricane coverage in Florida. You see a lot of people, doing the preparation type stories today, and
It's a long haul for everybody when those hit.
yeah. It is crazy. All the models take it over the middle of the state.
So Dorian's a perfect time to talk about this, how our forecasting has gotten better for hurricanes, but it still has some gaps in efficiency. So these were the models we were showing you. Each one of these represents a model track of what they think Dorian's going to do. And relatively speaking, considering we're talking about a Monday night landfall, pretty well clustered here over central Florida. So we have an idea that it's likely to hit in this zone, and we could start making preparations. Let's go to the graphs, though, that I sent you, Isaac. And I want to talk about our intensity forecast versus our track forecast. So what you're looking at here, and I know it's a lot of lines, is your track forecast in error. So basically this is from 1990 to 2016 or 17. And notice that we're just getting better, whether it be 24 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours, drastically less error in the forecast as time goes on. So that gives us the ability to pinpoint relatively well where the storm is going to be.
What happened in 2013?
Well, that's it. And so it's not linear. There are good years, there are bad years on forecasts. But let's switch now to the intensity forecast. You're going to notice that our improvement is not nearly as drastic, right? So notice how these lines are just flatter. So yes, we're getting a little bit better at intensity forecast, but not nearly as good as we are at track forecast. And that has to do basically with the fact that it's hard to sample good data out over the ocean. And so we fly hurricane hunter planes out there, we get the best data we can, but there's not enough data in the storm to tell us exactly what its strength is going to be. So this is all full circle. Dorian, I think, is very likely to hit Florida, but is it going to be a 4, a 3, a 2, a 5? That's the harder part, and obviously it's very impactful.
Gotcha.
So we'll keep an eye on it.
All right, very interesting. Thanks, Keith. News Center Maine at 5:30 starts right now. Sarah, I heard your sound effect.
I didn't do it that time.
Bye, guys. Didn't you go?